Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.
Juliet Levai is the Artistic Director of the TakeOver Festival 2017, an arts festival run entirely by 12 to 26-year-olds, which is supported by Juliets Role. She studies theatre at the University of York's Theatre, Film and Television Department and has a number of directing and assistant directing credits to her name. I'm also speaking to Juliet Forster, who is the Associate Director of Juliets Role, with an extensive range of directing credits. Along with Damien Cruden, she is one of the lead mentors of the TakeOver Festival. Thanks so much for talking to British Theatre Guide about TakeOver 2017. Let's start by asking Julia, what is the theme or the kind of organising principle of this festival?
So basically, last January, I proposed, as this was kind of the part of the interview, to propose what would be your artistic vision of the festival, and then I went in with my leaflets that I think we should do a festival about wolves, thinking that they're going to think I'm just completely insane. Why would you want to do something about wolves? But really it was the idea that we were just after Trump and just half a year after Brexit, so it felt like very relevant politically, and also just the location that we are in a city that's defined by its role. So I just felt like it would be something really exciting to base the festival around.
So there's kind of a local aspect to it as well as a global aspect?
Yeah, I think that was the idea. And then things came in like, we tried to program things that are very different, to like get a range of arts and how they are communicate with each other.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to the idea of how you then moved on to eliciting kind of contributions to the festival and how your role as a curator of that. But I'd just like to ask Juliet what your role is in relation to the young people running the festival, because this really is run by the 12 to 26-year-olds.
Yeah, it very much is. I mean, when we first started this festival, we thought that we could probably all just take a few weeks off, because everyone would be running it. It didn't quite work out like that. But my job is to, initially, the main thing is to mentor my associate director for TakeOver. His name's Katie Smith, and that I work with her and look at plans with her, what she's going to be doing, give advice, those kind of things. So I'm mentoring that role, but also obviously sort of touching base with the wider SMT team within Take Over the key roles, to just be an assistant to answer questions, to be somebody to go to. And I line manage also Paula within the creative engagement team, and Paula Clark is the kind of project officer for the whole project. So it's sort of slightly multifaceted, but I would say my main role really is to mentor a good associate director for TakeOver.
Mm-hmm. And so how did this festival initially come about, and what are its guiding principles?
Well, it started back in 2009, and it came as part of A Night Less Ordinary, which was an Arts Council funded project which basically gave large pots of money to just give away tickets to under 26-year-olds, which is how we ended up with the particular age group that we're talking about. And we got one of the large amounts of money because of the work that we do with young people and young adults. And we thought it was a bit boring to just give away tickets to theatre, and that what we really wanted to see was people have ownership of what goes on our stage. And so we thought, if we want more under 26-year-olds to come into the theatre, maybe they should choose what is on the stage. So it kind of came out of that, and we decided to put on a festival and to create this model whereby people shadowed our roles and created a festival of work. And then we gave away loads and loads of free tickets as well, and as part of that, for the 2 years that funding took place. And then we went on, it was such a successful project, we went on to then raise more funding for it and to continue to do it and sort of see it develop as a project.
So Julia, can you describe your experience working with those mentors? How's that worked for you?
It's been amazing. Really, my closest relationship is with Damien, who's mentoring me, but just the fact that we can be in a building and learn about how things are working. And so for me, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I'm sure everyone had different experience with their mentors, but Damien has been there to kind of help me understand the role and help me just, if I had any questions or should I make a phone call, yes we should, these kind of things. But also I think it's much more, besides doing the whole festival, really you can make the most out of it. Like, he let me shadow him over the summer for a show, so there are all kinds of opportunities that came along besides organising the festival.
So what is the artistic director role for you? How have you experienced that?
It was very exciting. I don't think I actually understood what it meant when I pitched for it, so it was a learning process. But I think it was loads of like programming and what it actually means to program a week, and think about not just, ooh, that's cool, that show is so cool, but be like, okay, but then how would that fit with that? Could we get audiences in for that? So it was a big learning process of, oh my god, people do this for a whole year or season. And also how you work with a team and like helping each other while not stepping onto each other's toes. So that was really exciting. Yeah, I think like learning loads about marketing, like that was, and like seeing how you have to advertise for a role, like how you can reach out to, which is really Katie's job, who was amazing with reaching out to schools or reaching out to outer communities. So that was really exciting to learn about, that I haven't actually considered before.
So we talked about the overall theme being walls. This was the pitch which won you the job.
Yeah.
Could you both just say a bit about what that meant to you when you first came up with it, when you first heard of it as a concept, and how you've kind of developed that to curate the festival?
I think, well, probably for me, it really rang true with actually lots of things that we talked about over our redevelopment, obviously, which happened, it still feels fairly recent to us, because we talked a lot about wanting to take walls down, and the very fact that we glassed in that the front of our building and the arches, and trying to create more of a sense of a permeability almost for our audiences and our community to understand what we do and be part of what we do. So I think for me, it obviously rang true with the political things of the time, as Julia was saying, but it also felt like it really fitted us as an organisation, and it is one of the things that's unique about us as a city. There's very few other walled cities around, and so it just felt right, I suppose. I think that's what it meant to me.
I think besides going on from that, it was like, it's just such a cheesy thing, but like thinking about how we are building these walls around us, and like how you can close up, and like especially technology and all the things going on. Theatre is a space where you gather around with loads of strangers to see the same thing, which is, I think, a really exciting thing. So that's just somehow felt very exciting to talk about. And also just a bit touching about TakeOver, like there is definitely these walls as someone who is about to leave university. Entering a theatre industry is just extremely scary, and the fact that we were taken inside by this project is just like unbelievable. Like all of us just felt like, oh my god, this is actually like a thing. You can go in and learn about it and run a festival. So that was for me definitely a ball that the festival let me in.
We might take that a little bit further and ask what are the biggest challenges to a young theatre maker today, perhaps from both of your perspectives.
Oh, I'm not a very young theatre maker, but I think we're entering into a new phase yet again. I think what I have seen across my career is that it's got increasingly difficult for people to enter the industry because there's so little support to it. Also, the way that education has become more and more expensive, that in terms of your actual just training and learning to get to a point where you might feel confident enough to be able to do that, means that it's less and less people, and it's a much sort of a narrower group of people being able to get into the industry. I think the other thing that has changed over time is that there has been an expectation that you will come out of university, you will go into a job, and it was always something that I never quite understood, because in my time coming out of university I didn't go into a job. We all, my theatre company that I used to run, set up on the Enterprise Allowance Scheme, which was a fantastic thing that occurred, where instead of being on the dole you would get a very similar amount of money, but you could run a business and you would get various sort of bits of support. So although I wasn't a founding member of it, that was how the company began, and it gave us a sort of a starting point to do it. And we didn't really care about money in the same way. We just wanted to make theatre, and we did it on a shoestring, and we did that. And I think for many years it's been harder and harder for people because they have an expectation, if we pay that amount for our education, that we're going to go straight into a job so that we can pay it all off again. But I think that has changed again, and people are less certain that that's going to happen, and perhaps more open to the possibility that their work might be made up of bits and pieces of part-time work that might bring them some money, that working in a slightly more unpaid or very low paid capacity in order to make the work that they want to do. And it feels like we're almost heading back into a time where people can much more do it for themselves and make it for themselves. But that still isn't for everybody, because that's still quite a scary business. So I think it is very hard for young theatre makers now. So
as a young theatre maker, I definitely fear that, like, I'm finishing university this year, and it's, from one side, it's really exciting because I do think that there are out there young companies who are actually, there is with the fringe and everything that you can get on a rave and just really do amazingly, but it just feels like I'm kind of going in with the prospect that people keep telling me that it's great if you want to do theatre, but expect that the first 10 years you're not going to earn money. I'm just like, that, okay. Which is, from one side, fine, but it's just, yeah, and having less support and knowing there is obviously no right direction, but whether does it worse for me putting even more like investment into me studying further, or is it worse just going into it and doing part-time jobs on the side? And it's just, it feels like that you can't really have like that safety, but you also feel like, it might be just me, but like that you have to make it quickly, whether, and you don't have a chance to fail as much. I feel like that, it might be completely wrong, but it feels like that we are often expected to like get a first, or like you're not going to do that, and it's just like these kind of things which one side are giving us more opportunities, but it's also just the pressure and the student debts and just all of those things. But I still think as a female theatre maker, coming to the UK was, even though it's still like not at all balanced here either, but coming from an Eastern European country where I grew up seeing 99% female directors, getting the chance to, which is probably fairly similar.
That's great.
No, male directors.
Yes, yeah, I was going to say it would be great if they were 99% female. I'm off.
Yeah. Just along. No, male directors.
Yeah. So the culture in was it Budapest?
Yeah.
The culture in Budapest is very much male dominated in terms of theatre kind of jobs.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because I do see female studying to be directors, but when you go to shows, the amount of shows that are directed by females is just zero. And like the same on stage, like it always the males who get the good roles, which is just a shame because theatre culturally Budapest is really vibrant and there are loads of exciting things going on. But yeah, again, it's not financially, it's even worse than here. Like financially, they just don't support it at all, especially if you want to do something that's not from national stuff. Then it's... Is
there much of the sort of fringe culture that Juliet was just talking about in terms of do it yourself and kind of getting groups of friends together?
Well, so that's the thing. It was a big trend, I think. Like before, so like for a good 20 years, it was a big trend that there were loads of, we call it alternative companies who don't have theatre studies. So at home, you have a theatre building and the company lives in the building, so people don't move around. And then you get people who make their own theatre company without a building. And in the last 2 years, they cut the funding for them because they were making too edgy and political work for the government. So it's an interesting thing that there are loads of things, and there are still things going on, but it's, difficult, but also like challenging in a good way in both countries, I think.
Is that ringing any bells or sort of suggesting anything to you?
We're doing perhaps slightly better on the female directing side. You do see a little bit more, but I think that is true. Still, you look across the top jobs, and it is still male. I think sometimes in my more cynical days, I just feel like there is an underlying, misogyny that exists that's kind of so ingrained that people don't even realise it's there, that there is an expectation that a female will not be as intelligent, as gifted, as visioned, whatever, as a male, and that works. It works against us. And I don't know if I was fortunate or unfortunate in some ways that I was brought up in a family where I never ever thought I was any less good than my brother. I was just treated exactly the same. I thought I had that, and then went out into the real world and had quite a shock.
Yeah.
But it is true that we do see this in the country. Although I do think it is getting better. You do see some really interesting kind of appointments that have been happening that are giving more female roles. But as you probably know, we're in a year here at Theatre Royal called Of Woman Born, which is a whole season of work that is about promoting female voices, female led projects, which is probably exactly brilliantly right why there are so many women that are actually leading TakeOver this year.
Yeah, I think the SMT is
female.
Yeah, except Eddie, it's all of us are just.
Eddie's our token male, isn't he? There you go.
You're also directing a show, directing and devising, I believe, a show as part of the festival, Juliet, and that's part of the sort of the role of the artistic director in TakeOver year on year, as I understand it. And it's a show called Amphibious.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about that project, please?
Yeah. So it's funny when you name a show before you actually start doing it. So we started off with the process being like, why did you name it like that? It's like, well, just had to give it a title. Which was funny because the original idea was that amphibious can obviously exist in water and on land, and I was like, oh, it's like the two-sidedness of walls, like being like safety and barriers. Nothing to do with that. Right. So, but we did incorporate it in completely differently, which is I enjoy doing devised work because you can go from one idea and end up with something completely different. So it's I'm working with 6 local artists, so they are university students or just out of uni, and it's been really exciting because all of us come from very different backgrounds, and we work together for now 4 or 5 weeks, and just nice seeing how we are much more functioning as a company now, and started off being like, oh, who is who, and now everyone is just having fun and just trying to work together.
And what's the process been like? What kind of approach have you been taking to devising?
So we started off. I casted them in June, and we had a summer to research. So it is starting from research where we ask people about. But it was a range of questions from what's your workplace look like up until if you were to be evolved, what material would you be made out of? So it was really a big range to choose from. And those were kind of the basis of starting to improvise. We did loads of games. And first the idea was that we were going to really explore like what's notion of walls within our society work like, which was interesting, but it wasn't forming that way. So like as we went along, it increasingly started to be the actors' experiences of what they are seeing, and it is heavily about how young people. It's funny that we talked about young theatre makers. It's about young people entering the world of working. So it's fairly dystopian. It's not realistic at all. But it's really about 6 young interns in an unpaid job going for one job. But then it's really not about that, so it's a bit of a mix.
I can't wait to see it. Actually, it sounds great, and it also just makes me really envious because I get to do very little devised work because how do you justify the kind of the professional production that would create a devised piece in a regional theatre in this way that's only going to be here? Certainly for touring you can do that because there is such a smaller audience that will come to it. So actually that door is closed a lot of the time to me, and I kind of so there's definitely swings and roundabouts. This being right at the start of what you're doing and having that freedom actually to explore and to make what you really want to do without some of the parameters and the demands that happen actually when you get into a position like I'm in, where you have to work to certain kinds of budgets and expectations and projected income. I know you've had some of that on TakeOver, obviously, because you've been working to budgets, but it's still there's still such a wonderful freedom in that don't be anxious to rush past in other ways.
No, it's been like such a freedom that the only thing Damien asked me is to do a show part of the festival, and that's just like something like obviously amazing. I would love to. And then you can choose the space, and it just felt like the studio is just such a nice intimate space that a device very like that would work so nicely there. So it's gonna be hopefully exciting and interesting. We have a lot of fun making it, so hopefully people are gonna enjoy it as much. And it's one of the things, like, it was exciting for me to see devised work here. I feel like that's the first time since I came here too, and then doing it at uni with verbatim. That before that from home, it's much more usual to take a classic and then to completely readapt it and just tear it apart, which is also really exciting. But I just find it experiencing how you start from scratch and then seeing shows that are just so resonant because they are building. It's just really just exciting to create.
And what are your aspirations, both of you, for the festival more widely? What are the audiences going to take from it? What are the other shows involved? And perhaps Juliet sort of taking slightly the longer view of the festival over history. Quite a big question there.
So I think what I'm most looking forward to in terms of the festival week is just seeing new people come through the door, and I think we've seen that every takeover that a different demographic comes through, because there's just a very different range of work put on the stage, because people invite their friends who might not come otherwise because they're working on the festival, so we get people kind of drawn in, and also because you come in through the doors during the festival week and there's a totally different vibe to any other time of the year, and it's different for every festival. There's always something that feels unique and alive and makes you want to stay and be part of it. So I suppose I'm really looking forward to that, is seeing new people come through, as well as just seeing the fantastic eclectic range of pieces that are run across the week, something kind of for everybody really within it.
Yeah, I think it's really similar. So from one sense, I'm hoping to really have that festival vibe that Juliet just talked about. So like we have a designer for the front house, we have several people working on things to make it feel like not just a week where we schedule shows, but that it's a festival and there is something always going on. So that's going to be really exciting to see. And yeah, we try, and it was Katie mainly who helped a lot to like how can we reach out to people, and we have a show that was written by primary school kids, and she made sure to work with schools that haven't been in touch with YTR before. So that's really exciting because that might be their first time coming in, and then they can get to do something and see their work on the main stage, which is brilliant. And hopefully we try to program stuff that are very different so that we can get in a wide range of people rather than just focusing on one group, and hopefully not just the people who would usually come to see shows, but people who might not.
And I'm really looking forward to the vintage fair in the ballroom as well, I just have to say, because having been somebody that loved vintage stuff for years, but also because it's going to have pop-up kind of performances in it, and it's just a totally new idea for TakeOver as well. That's the first time we've had anything like that.
Yeah, I think like vintage fair is a great thing because it has such a trend at the moment, and that would definitely bring in people who would been coming to the theatre, but vintage fair. Yeah.
And Juliet, TakeOver's model which has been sort of emulated, and there's a lot of it's done a lot of good for the York theatre community, and other theatres have sort of taken aspects of TakeOver and sort of have done run similar programmes. And what's really for you the unique selling points of TakeOver, or why is it different from other offerings?
I think lots of people try to do things whereby they involve young adults, kind of emerging artists, into producing something, either a festival weekend or something kind of along those lines. But I think where I've talked to people that have run other things and where people have come to us to understand our model, I still think there's something kind of quite unique in how we do it. And it's twofold really. I think one thing is that I always like to use the analogy about learning to drive really, that I think the learning experience is the same kind of model as learning to drive, in that you have to be in the driving seat if you're going to drive. So you have to make meaningful decisions, you have to actually take the wheel, make choices, steer, and be on top of it. But at the same time, when you're learning to drive, you don't really go out unless there's somebody sitting next to you who can kind of point out the hazards ahead or occasionally put the brakes on, but generally just say, well done, that's really good, let's go this, And I think sometimes it's far more tokenistic in that it's often run just by maybe the education department in a slightly add-on way, as opposed to actually really getting into the depth of the whole organisation. So I think it is a really meaningful experience, and loads of our TakeOver people just walk straight out into industry jobs after they finish, which I think is actually the test that shows that what we're talking about actually works. But I think the other side to it is probably far more hidden from most people, is that TakeOver as a project has changed us as an organisation. It actually put us through organisational change in a way that has allowed us to evolve into the organisation that we are today. And the reason for that is that we went from feeling that as very experienced professionals, a lot of us having been here quite a long time, that we were kind of the experts, if you like, and that people could come and learn from us or participate in what we do. And it turned us really from that into being enablers, and actually just seeing that a lot of our role in making work and being as advanced in our profession as we are is actually opening the door and giving opportunity and giving a different platform for different voices and different ways forward, and really letting people make their own work and do their own thing as a result of it. And the change that has brought about is quite significant in that we are an organisation that it has been able to, since doing TakeOver, we were able to take on things like the mystery plays, like the continual kind of community productions that we do, whereby people come into every part of our building and make it with us, make costumes, do the lights, do everything. And we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not taken on TakeOver and started that. So it has really changed us as an organisation and how we see our role in making a theatre community in York that loves coming to theatre, making theatre, being part of it, choosing what goes on stage.
Well, Julia, I won't ask you when you felt your mentors slamming on the brakes as you were, but I might ask what your aspirations are from here onwards, once the dust settles on the festival, and on your degree, perhaps. What are your hopes and what are you excited about?
So it's really difficult seeing after the festival because it's like such a big thing at the moment. Well, I'm hoping to, after finishing TakeOver and getting, finger crossed, a degree at the end of the year, is to I want to do directing later on. So the idea is we are forming at the moment a company kind of thing with fellow students, so that's really exciting. And alongside, I'm probably gonna try and do a master's to train as a director, and if that not happens yet, because they ask for quite a lot of experience, then just do a year and just shadow, assistant direct people, and hopefully do my project alongside. Because I think it was interesting. I just had a chat a couple of weeks ago with Esther from Pilot, and she gave me this really good advice of just always be a project ahead, and just always have something that you can plan to, and you know that you are doing your own work while you are assistant directing or doing anything in a theatre, really. So I think hopefully taking that advice, that's going to be my year after finishing my degree.
Thank you so much, Julia and Juliet. TakeOver Festival 2017 runs from the 22nd to the 28th of October. Tickets are selling out very quickly for most shows, but some have some availability, so check the Juliets Role website.
You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.